at the engagement party in Beverly Hills. Everything should have been perfect. I had chosen my dress carefully, a white silk gown that shimmered softly under the lights. The kind of dress that made me feel both elegant and secure in my place beside Daniel Anderson. Yet the moment I stepped into the ballroom, my smile froze. Chloe Bennett, Daniel's adopted sister, appeared in a gown identical to mine. The sight made my stomach drop. She didn't even look embarrassed. Instead, she tilted her head toward Daniel with her wide, innocent eyes and asked in a lilting voice, "Daniel between me and Harper, who looks prettier?" Before Daniel could open his mouth, before I could even catch my breath, Linda Anderson, my future mother-in-law, moved faster than anyone expected. With a cold, commanding glare, she snatched a glass of red wine from the table and tossed it directly onto Chloe's gown. The crimson liquid splattered across the white fabric like blood blooming on snow. Her voice was sharp enough to silence the music. "Either you change that dress immediately," she said, "or you walk out of here." The crowd gasped, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. My future mother-in-law was fierce, unapologetic, and strangely magnificent. But this wasn't the first time Chloe had tried to ruin me. The memory still burned fresh in my mind. On the day I graduated from Stanford, a day I had worked years for. Daniel had chosen that exact moment to kneel down before me. He held a bouquet in one hand and a diamond ring in the other, his voice trembling with emotion. "Harper, I've waited for this day since the moment we met. I promised myself I'd hold back until you finished your degree, and I kept that promise. Don't let me wait in vain." His eyes were soft, clear, and filled with a devotion that melted me from the inside out. Around us, people cheered, whistled, and chanted. "Say yes, say yes." My eyes stung with tears as I reached out my hand, ready to whisper the word that would bind us together forever. But before I could speak, a blur cut across my vision. Out of nowhere, a cake flew through the air and smashed against my face. Thick frosting coated my skin, dripping into my lashes, blinding me in a sticky, sweet veil. The crowd fell into stunned silence, and then like a rabbit springing out of a trap, Chloe appeared in front of me, her voice chiming with false cheer. "Surprise, sis. Didn't expect that, did you?" The humiliation burned hotter than the sun. My makeup was ruined, my graduation gown smeared with cream, my moment stolen. And she, Chloe, stood there looking like the picture of innocence. She wasn't Daniel's blood sister, only the girl his grandmother had taken in years ago. A girl raised with every privilege spoiled like fragile porcelain. Everyone excused her tantrums as the whims of a pampered child, but I knew better. I had a brother of my own. I understood what sisterly affection looked like. And the way she gazed at Daniel was not the gaze of a sister. It was possessive, clinging, desperate. Daniel's face had turned dark with fury that day. He yanked her aside, his voice slicing through the stunned quiet. "Chloe, have you lost your mind? What the hell are you doing?" She trembled, her eyes filling with tears, her lips quivering like a frightened child. She clutched his sleeve and whimpered, "I just wanted to celebrate her birthday. I didn't mean anything bad." Her words dripped with saccharine innocence, but my anger boiled over. What birthday? It wasn't even my birthday. And even if it had been, who celebrated with a cake to the face in front of hundreds of strangers? If she claimed it was an accident, I wouldn't believe it for a second. My hands clenched at my sides as Daniel wiped the frosting from my face with trembling paper towels, his anger still simmering. "Do you have rocks in your head? Couldn't you see I was proposing?" But Chloe only pouted, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "You never yell at me," she whispered. "You're only doing this because Harper is mad. Please don't hate me. We're just kids. We were just playing. The word rang in my ears like mockery. My engagement moment, my dream proposal reduced to a childish prank. I stood there, my gown a mess, my dignity dangling by a thread, while she looked at me with that wide-eyed, pitiful expression, the kind designed to make men's hearts soften. Inside, I felt a herd of wild horses stomping through me, each one crashing against my ribs. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, salvation came from the unlikeliest place. Out of the murmuring crowd stepped Linda Anderson. She bent down calmly, picked up the half-smashed cake from the ground, and without a word slammed it straight into Chloe's face. Gasps erupted, laughter followed, and for once Chloe's mask of innocence cracked. Frosting clung to her cheeks, her eyes blinking furiously behind the thick, sticky cream. Linda released the cake with a sharp twist of her wrist, leaving Chloe covered head to toe in humiliation. The satisfaction that surged through me was electric. Watching Chloe splutter and gasp, watching her perfect act collapse under the weight of her own cruelty. It was like breathing fresh air after drowning. Linda straightened her eyes cold, but her lips curled in a smile that only I seemed to understand. In that instant, I knew one thing: my future mother-in-law was a woman who didn't tolerate nonsense. And in her, I had found an unexpected ally. When Chloe finally realized what had happened, her entire face was plastered with thick white frosting, a solid block of cake still clinging stubbornly to her cheek. Linda Anderson's strike had not been gentle, and for the first time, Chloe's flawless mask of innocence slipped. The room filled with stunned laughter and a ripple of gasps. But all I felt was a strange sense of justice. The saying echoed in my mind, "Those who sow the wind will reap the storm." Chloe burst into tears, her voice shrill and broken. "Mom, why would you do that, Mom?" The words stunned me more than the cake on her face. Mom. She had called Linda her mother, and in that instant it hit me. The fearless woman standing there was not only Daniel's mother, but my future mother-in-law. I turned to Daniel in disbelief, and he squeezed my hand tightly, leaning closer with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Before I could push him away, he bent down and licked a smear of frosting from the corner of my face. In the middle of the crowd, his voice was low and intimate against my ear. "Sweet as sugar, my love." My entire body flushed crimson. I shoved him back quickly, praying no one had noticed, but fortunately, all eyes remained on Chloe's trembling figure. Linda, calm but sharp, lifted her chin. "Didn't you just say kids these days play around like this?" "Well, I'm old, but I can play too." Her words drew nervous chuckles, but her gaze was colder than ice. "What's wrong, Chloe? Don't tell me you're actually upset. If you can't handle a taste of your own game, maybe your heart is too small." It was ruthless and brilliant. I wanted to clap my hands in admiration. Chloe faltered, her lips twitching as she forced a stiff smile. "Of course not, Mom. Today is Harper's special day. I wouldn't ruin it. I was just having fun." She tugged pitifully on Daniel's sleeve again. "Daniel, help me. I can't even see." "Wipe it off for me," but Daniel's face had hardened. His voice was cold enough to cut glass. "The wipes are for my fiancé. Buy your own." His rejection was merciless, and I lowered my head to hide the laugh bubbling in my chest. Chloe's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, her gaze darting between me and Daniel. "Harper, I was only joking with you. Why are you letting him treat me like this?" I didn't even say anything wrong. My patience cracked, but I kept my composure, lips curving into a mocking smile. "So only you get to make jokes, Chloe." When others joke back, it's suddenly cruel. Strange logic. Daniel's voice turned sharp, his expression flat. "Enough. If you hadn't been disrupting everything, I'd probably already have a child by now." My cheeks burned with mortification. The room erupted with whispers, and Linda, ever ready to twist the knife, added dryly, "Exactly. If you hadn't been interfering, I'd probably be holding my first grandchild already." My knees nearly buckled, my face burning so hot I thought the floor might swallow me whole. The absurdity of it all was unbearable. My carefully styled hair was ruined, matted with frosting. My gown stained white with sugar, and worse, a sweet, sticky smell had begun attracting moths and little gnats. I felt less like a bride-to-be and more like a dessert display. My palms damp with sweat, I instinctively hid behind Daniel's tall frame, wishing to vanish. Linda studied me with narrowed eyes, and then unexpectedly she smiled. "So it seems beauty depends on the person. Some people look lovely even covered in cake." Her words nearly made me choke. My mouth stumbled clumsily, and instead of a polite greeting, the wrong word slipped out in my panic. "Hello, Mom." Laughter exploded around us. My classmates doubled over, cheering and teasing. "She's fierce, a true expert at handling fakes. The enemy of every homewrecker." Chloe's face twisted her feet, stomping angrily before she stormed out of the room. Linda, however, remained unmoved, her eyes glistening as if she were holding back tears of pride. Then she surprised me further by sliding a jade bracelet off her own wrist and pressing it into my hand. "Harper, I came unprepared today. Take this for now. I'll give you something proper later." The cool stone gleamed pure and white, far too valuable for me to accept. My chest tightened, overwhelmed by the sudden affection. I didn't mean I wasn't asking. But before I could finish, Daniel reached for my hand, slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, and grinned at his mother. "Mom gave it to you. Don't refuse. Look, doesn't it suit her perfectly?" His easy confidence and boyish smile lit up the room, earning another wave of teasing from our friends. "Mrs. Anderson, she's brilliant, top of her class, the pride of our program, and sweet too. A wonderful cook." Their voices blended into a chorus of praise, as if I were the jewel of the entire university. Linda's smile deepened her shoulders, easing as she listened. Daniel stood beside me, smirking like the cat who'd stolen the cream, utterly unashamed. I was mortified, every inch of me blushing, yet beneath it all, warmth spread through me. The bracelet glittered against my wrist, a heavy reminder that I was no longer an outsider. For the first time that night, despite the chaos, I felt truly accepted. I wanted to refuse politely, to insist I wasn't asking for anything. But before I could even finish, Daniel took the bracelet without hesitation and slipped it onto my wrist himself. "It's a gift from Mom," he said casually. "Keep it, no need to be shy." His eyes flicked to mine with a teasing glimmer before turning back to Linda, flashing her a grin so wide I wanted to smack it off his face. "See, Mom, doesn't she look even sweeter with your bracelet on?" Linda's response was to kick her son in the backside. "You rascal, always careless, always joking, but at least you've got good taste in women, just like your father back in the day." The crowd burst out laughing, and I wanted to sink into the floor. My friends piled on, their voices overlapping in noisy praise. "Mrs. Anderson Harper is brilliant. She's at the top of our class. Kind too, everyone loves her, and she can cook better than any of us." Their words flew so fast it almost felt like I had hired them to stand here and sing my praises. Linda's smile softened into genuine warmth as she listened, her hand resting proudly on my arm. Daniel, meanwhile, stood smirking like a boy who had just stolen a whole candy store, his eyes glued to me. The heat in my cheeks was unbearable. I curled my toes in my shoes, trying to disappear, while he looked utterly delighted with himself. Just when I thought I couldn't blush any harder, Linda's eyes gleamed, and she suddenly pulled another bracelet from her other wrist. "Take this one too. A pair belongs together." She fastened it onto my arm before I could even protest, and the guests clapped as though she had crowned me as her daughter-in-law then and there. The laughter finally died down, and I excused myself to the restroom to fix my ruined hair and frosting-streaked face. When I returned, Linda suggested that everyone move the celebration to their family mansion in Malibu for dinner. My heart plummeted. Meeting the family in this disheveled state was the last thing I wanted. My gown was stained, my hair sticky with cream, and I hardly resembled someone about to be welcomed into one of the most powerful families in California. Daniel slipped his arm around me, pulling me close. "Mom, I'll take Harper shopping for a change of clothes first." Linda arched an eyebrow, then chuckled, her voice filled with approval. "I was waiting for you to say that. A man who lets his fiancé look anything less than her best doesn't deserve her." Her blunt honesty made me want to laugh and cry at once. I had expected criticism, but instead found only protection. "Harper, don't be upset," Linda added, gently squeezing my hand. "You've been through enough embarrassment today. I promise you'll never be mistreated in this family." Daniel's uncle chimed in too, nodding firmly. "She's right. You'll always be protected here." Their sincerity washed over me like a tide, leaving me both stunned and moved. And Daniel, never missing a chance to tease, leaned down to whisper, "Marry me, Harper. I promise you'll never regret the investment." My heart skipped, caught between laughter and tenderness, surrounded by their warmth. The moment could have been perfect, but perfection never lasted long with Chloe Bennett nearby. Out of nowhere, she appeared again, bouncing toward us with a heavy, lumbering gait that made the floor tremble beneath her. She must have thought she looked cute, girlish even, but the sight was comical and pitiful at once. Daniel's face darkened immediately, and Linda's expression twisted, as though she were watching her entire world collapse. Daniel, Chloe whined, clinging to his sleeve with sticky fingers. "I'm hungry. I want that little French bistro you used to take me to. Remember how sweet you were back then? Now you only care about her." Her words dripped with poison disguised as honey, calculated to pierce my chest. I froze. Did she have a tracker hidden on me? How else could she time her appearances so perfectly, always arriving just as the moment grew tender? Goosebumps prickled across my arms as her voice turned soft and tearful, her eyes shimmering with practiced sorrow. She smiled bravely through the tears, painting herself as the victim. "You once said if no one wanted me when I grew up, you would marry me. Don't you remember?" The world tilted. My breath caught in my throat. She was confessing this here in front of me, and everyone's rage bubbled up hot and bitter. No one wanted her, so she thought Daniel was her consolation prize. What was he, some kind of trash can to collect? What no one else would. I turned to Daniel, my voice sharp and dripping with contempt. "Impressive, Daniel. You couldn't even wait for me to grow up before making promises like that. All that time I thought you were different, and now this." My words cut, but it was Chloe I wanted to wound, to expose, to shatter her shameless little charade. Daniel's face flushed crimson, his jaw tightening as though he wanted to swear on his life that he had never uttered such words. "I never said that. Whoever told you, they're lying. Mom, you can back me up." Linda Anderson nodded firmly, her eyes hard. Relief washed over Daniel's face, as though he had just been pardoned from a death sentence. He cast me a sidelong glance, his expression pleading for me to believe him. The truth was, I didn't need his explanation at all. I had only thrown the accusation out there to see if he would catch on to Chloe Bennett's intentions, to make him face the uncomfortable reality. Linda flicked her son lightly on the forehead, her tone mocking yet sharp. "This boy used to run around as a kid promising to marry every girl he met. I swear there must have been at least a dozen proposals." She turned her gaze back to Chloe, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "Do you still remember, Chloe? Back when you wore those torn little shorts and ran around begging my son to marry you?" Chloe's face blazed red, the false innocence slipping for a brief second before she stammered in embarrassment. "Mom, that was all childish nonsense. Why bring it up in front of outsiders?" But Linda wasn't finished. Her voice cut deeper. "And what about the time you wouldn't stop crying, insisting you wanted him to marry Big Bear?" Daniel leaned toward me and whispered, his breath warm against my ear. "Big Bear was the family dog. My dad had him neutered when I was little." The absurdity of it hit me all at once, and I burst into laughter I couldn't hold back. Poor Big Bear, even he hadn't escaped Chloe's bizarre fantasies. Chloe's mask finally shattered. She snapped, her voice sharp with anger. "Mom, those were childish things. Why humiliate me like this?" But Daniel's patience had run out. His voice was cold, slicing like a blade. "Outsider, who's an outsider? Look closely. This is my fiancé, my wife-to-be, Mom's daughter-in-law. Stop calling her sister. Start calling her what she is. Your sister-in-law." Heat rushed to my cheeks. "Wait, who said I agreed to marry you already?" I muttered. But Daniel only smirked, unbothered. Chloe's eyes darkened with pure malice, her voice dripping venom. "I'll never call her that. She doesn't deserve you. She'll never be good enough." My lips curled into a sharp smile, my words colder than steel. "And you think you do?" "The Andersons gave you their name out of generosity, Chloe. Don't delude yourself into believing that makes you entitled to what doesn't belong to you. Linda's eyes glittered with ruthless clarity. She had seen through Chloe's little charade long before I had. Her voice was heavy, each word pressing Chloe deeper into the ground. You should be grateful for what you've been given. We took you in, raised you as our own, and this is how you repay us. Stop pretending. Daniel never saw you as anything more than a sister, and the sooner you accept that, the better. Chloe bit her lips so hard I thought it might bleed, her fist twisting the hem of her dress. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she had no rebuttal. Linda didn't spare her another glance. She grabbed Chloe by the wrist and dragged her out of the room, her silence louder than any insult. As the door slammed, Daniel turned back to me, his face softening instantly. So, wife, where to now? His voice was playful, deliberately testing my patience. I wanted to throttle him. Someone drag this shameless man away before I lose my mind, I muttered, turning my head with feigned indifference. But Daniel only wrapped his arms around me, his warmth seeping into my bones. Harper, don't be mad, I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you the truth no matter how messy it is. His voice, so full of earnestness, made my anger falter even as my pride screamed at me not to let him off too easily. Daniel told me everything in detail. And at last I understood who Chloe Bennett really was. She wasn't his real sister at all, just some distant relative whose grandmother had once been owed a debt of gratitude by Patricia Anderson. When Chloe's parents passed away, Daniel's grandmother insisted on bringing her into the family, even going so far as to force Linda to raise her as a daughter. From that day forward, Patricia managed every detail of Chloe's life, while Linda had little say. With endless indulgence, Chloe grew up spoiled beyond measure, a girl with no sense of discipline or boundaries. Linda had protested countless times, but her objections only earned her mother-in-law's anger. So eventually she gave up throwing money at the problem and treating it as a debt being repaid. When Chloe reached marrying age, Linda thought at last she'd be able to rid the family of this burden. But Patricia shocked everyone by suggesting Chloe should be paired with Daniel. The house erupted in outrage. Linda nearly lost her appetite from fury, and Daniel argued until his throat was hoarse, but Patricia would not bend. She insisted the match was perfect no matter who disagreed. Daniel had finally confronted Chloe, directly telling her it would never happen. She responded with theatrics, crying, threatening, begging, even talking about ending her life. For a moment, she pretended to have accepted reality, and Daniel nearly believed her, but clearly her heart had never let go. As Daniel recounted all this to me, his face was tight with conviction, his tone almost noble. He looked at me like a martyr, forced to wade through the mud. Harper, you have to believe me, he vowed, pressing his hand to his chest. Body and soul, I belong only to you. I couldn't help laughing and gave him a swift kick under the table. The image of Chloe's manipulative little pout flashed through my mind and my skin crawled with disgust. This situation was a ticking time bomb and I knew it. If Chloe could pull stunts like this now, what else might she do tomorrow or the day after? Don't worry, Daniel whispered, his lips brushing my temple. My mom will handle it. I'll stand behind you. He kissed me lightly, a secret smile on his lips. All you need to do is be Mrs. Anderson, I snorted, as if I want to be Mrs. Anderson. I just don't like anyone else reaching for the food in my bowl. Later, we went shopping to replace my ruined clothes and bought gifts for his family. Standing before the massive Malibu oceanfront mansion, my heart hammered in my chest. Daniel puffed out his chest with boyish pride, his eyes full of certainty. Trust me, he said, and for a moment I did. The door swung open. Linda greeted me with a smile so warm it lit up her face, while his father offered an awkward but kind nod. Chloe was already there, her lips pressed in a sulky line as she clung to Patricia Anderson's side. I forced a polite smile, stepping into my role as the future daughter-in-law. It's a pleasure to meet you, I said, greeting them each in turn. Daniel's parents returned the gesture warmly, but Patricia remained stone-faced, her eyes glued to her phone as though I didn't exist. I didn't need to guess why. Chloe had clearly poisoned her ear. My suspicion was confirmed when Patricia suddenly barked, "Who said I was hard of hearing?" The room fell into uneasy silence. Linda caught my eye quickly, giving me the smallest reassuring nod before slipping her hand around mine. You must be hungry, Harper. I cooked your favorite dishes myself. Her words wrapped around me like a shield, steadying me when I thought I might crumble. Chloe trailed back to the table, trying to wedge herself between Daniel and me, but Linda slid in swiftly, blocking her. Forced to retreat, Chloe slumped beside Patricia, her lips trembling as if she might cry. Patricia predictably reached over to pat her hand, her eyes flashing with disapproval toward Linda, but Linda ignored her, focusing all her warmth on me. As I reached for a shrimp, Chloe's shrill little voice piped up. Daniel, I want shrimp too. Peel it for me. The sound grated high and piercing like a mouse caught in a trap. I nearly winced. Did no one ever tell her how awful that voice was? It made me want to shove cotton in my ears. Daniel didn't even look at her. He set the peeled shrimp into my bowl with deliberate care. I'm busy taking care of my wife. No time for you. Chloe's eyes flashed with betrayal. You're playing favorites. You never treated me like this before. And there it was again, the endless refrain, the pitiful little plea, the act of the wrong child. My stomach twisted. I could feel the storm building, and part of me almost wanted it to hit just so the air would finally clear. Linda's voice cut through the tension, cold and sharp. Chloe, your brother is a man, and loving his wife is the most natural thing in the world. You're not crippled, you have 2 hands and 2 feet. Surely you can feed yourself. If you feel so jealous, then find yourself a boyfriend instead of inserting yourself into other people's lives. Chloe's face twisted, her tone defensive. I'm not interfering. The family just suddenly has a stranger in it, and I'm not used to it yet. Her words snapped something inside me. I set my fork down and turned, meeting her eyes head on. A stranger, open your eyes. I am Daniel's fiancé, his future wife. Daniel chose that moment to place a shrimp delicately between my lips, his gaze never leaving Chloe's. His voice was cool, deliberate. You'd better get used to it. In a few years, there may be 2 or 3 more little strangers at this table. Isn't that right, sweetheart? I nearly choked. My face burned while he quickly offered me a glass of water, smirking at his own audacity. Mother and son perfectly in sync, pushing Chloe into the shadows. My fury trembled at the edges of my composure, but Chloe only bit into her ribs violently, her lips trembling with silent rage. It was then Patricia finally looked up, her eyes sweeping over me like shards of ice. Daniel is still young. Falling in love is fine, but marriage is not something to rush. Daniel shot up from his seat so fast I gasped. Grandmother, it's not too soon. Harper and I have been together for 4 years. I'm already 27, and his words faltered. I pinched his thigh under the table, my face blazing. He winced, grimaced, then tightened his hold on my hand, refusing to back down. The truth is, I'm ready. I'd march the clerk from the marriage bureau into this house if I could. His father chuckled warmly, nodding in support. She's a good girl, Patricia. She and Daniel are a fine match. Linda smiled too, her eyes bright with pride. Together, the 3 of them looked at me with such expectation that I dropped my head over my bowl, shoveling rice into my mouth to hide my blush. My heart, however, bloomed with a happiness I couldn't contain. That meal was the best I had tasted in my entire life. Afterward, I presented the gifts I had prepared. A special tea for Daniel's father and a skincare device for Linda. Their eyes lit up like children at Christmas, their laughter so full of joy that they immediately pressed 2 bright red envelopes into my hands. I hesitated, embarrassed by their generosity. But before I could say anything, Chloe began circling the room, munching an apple with a smirk on her face. What nonsense, she sneered. This house isn't a recycling center. Take that junk back where you got it. My chest tightened. The truth was, the gifts weren't expensive. The tea was grown and packaged by my father himself, and the skincare device was something I had saved up for by working part-time for months. They weren't luxury, but they were the most meaningful things I could offer. I was the daughter of an ordinary family, not a dynasty like the Andersons, and I had always been aware of the vast gulf between us. More than once, I had considered walking away because of it. Only Daniel's persistence had carried us this far. Now, with him in the bathroom and his father in the study, I felt utterly defenseless. Chloe's sneer cut deeper than I expected, and for a moment my heart went cold. Linda returned from the kitchen carrying water and overheard everything. Her face hardened as she set the glass down and shoved Chloe lightly but firmly. "Chloe, mind your tongue. Whatever Harper gives us, we like it." If she poured me a cup of plain water, I'd find it sweet. "Stop meddling." Before Chloe could protest, Patricia slammed her cane against the floor, her voice thundering. "Pathetic. To be bought by such petty things shows how little you value yourselves." I froze. I had almost forgotten I hadn't presented anything to Patricia yet. Quickly, I pulled a small portable speaker from my bag. "Grandmother," I said softly, "this is for you." Patricia hadn't even reacted yet when Chloe leaned forward, her voice dripping with disdain. "Harper Collins, a cheap speaker. You really dare to present that as a gift." She didn't even bother with the false courtesy of calling me sister anymore. Her mask was gone. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Thank God she only had one mouth, because if she had more, the whole world would go mad. "Yes," I admitted with a small smile. "It's only a little speaker." But I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only Patricia could hear. "But I already loaded it with 2,000 of the most popular online novels," I whispered. Patricia's expression cracked her lips, twitching upward, as if against her will. She tried to mask it, but the delight was there. Daniel returned just in time, glanced at the speaker, and instantly caught on. "Grandma, this is something Harper prepared just for you. Just press a button and you can listen to any story you want: overbearing CEOs, whirlwind weddings, sweet romances, domineering husbands. It's all in there. If you don't like it, I'll just bring it over to the Andersons next door." "I like it," Patricia snapped before I could even breathe. "Who said I don't?" She snatched the speaker as though afraid someone might take it away. Chloe's face curdled, but no one cared anymore. Daniel's hand slipped into mine, our fingers weaving together a silent victory that needed no words. We had won this round, and happiness felt one step closer. Everyone in the family seemed pleased with me, everyone except Chloe. But that was enough. After the meeting, the engagement was officially set. On the day of the engagement party in Beverly Hills, I should have expected Chloe to pull another stunt. She appeared in a gown identical to mine, her body stuffed into the satin like dough overflowing from a tin. This was the same woman who had ruined my graduation proposal with a flying cake, and now she was determined to destroy my engagement too. My anger snapped. "Chloe Bennett, open your eyes. Today is my engagement to Daniel Anderson. Wearing the same dress is your brain missing a screw. Shameless truly has no limits." She didn't flinch. Instead, she flitted toward Daniel like a moth to a flame, ignoring the name on the entrance banner that read in giant letters, "Engagement of Daniel Anderson and Harper Collins. Daniel, between me and her, who's prettier, who do you love more?" The crowd sucked in their breath. My stomach knotted, but before Daniel could speak, Linda Anderson moved faster than a striking snake. A glass of red wine flew through the air and splashed across Chloe's white gown, the crimson soaking deep into the fabric. "Take it off or get out," Linda barked. "Don't make a circus of this family." The room went silent. My jaw nearly dropped to the floor. My future mother-in-law was a force of nature, fearless and unyielding. Chloe's eyes brimmed with tears as she clutched Daniel's arm, her voice trembling. "Daniel, we grew up together. No one knows you better than I do. I'm the one who truly loves you. I'm the one who should be your wife. You promised me when we were children you'd marry me." Mascara streamed down her cheeks in two thick black lines. At last she had dropped the pretense of being a sister. The war was no longer silent. It was official, and I found myself almost exhilarated by the challenge. My fist clenched, my pulse thrumming with anticipation. Linda stepped forward and wrenched Chloe away from Daniel. "Chloe, how many times have I told you Daniel never loved you? In his eyes, you were always just a sister. Your father and I treated you as our own child, never lacking in anything. But if you keep pushing your luck, don't blame me for being cruel." Chloe's sobs grew louder. Fine, not me, but why her? Why Harper Collins? She's just a poor girl after your money. She doesn't deserve Daniel. Careful, I said coolly. Your brother was the one who chased me with sweet words, not the other way around. Before Chloe could retort, Linda's hand cracked across her cheek. The sharp sound echoed in the hall, and the satisfaction it gave me was almost sinful. Wake up, Chloe. Your parents were farmers. Where did you get this inflated sense of entitlement? Have a few years in the Anderson mansion made you forget your roots? Harper may come from a modest family, but she's hardworking, intelligent, respectful, and honest. She's worth 10 of you. If I don't choose her as my daughter-in-law, who would I choose? Her words broke me open. My eyes stung with tears, my heart swelling with gratitude. Linda's gaze softened as she turned back to me, smiling with warmth that felt like an embrace. And you, Chloe? She continued, her voice turning icy again. We gave you every advantage. What have you done with it? No education, no career, nothing but eating and sleeping. Even your liver is swimming in fat and you dare to compete. If Daniel ever dares to marry you, I'll break his legs myself. Linda's voice was relentless, each word striking like a whip. You have no education, no career, nothing to show for yourself. You eat and sleep all day, and now even your liver is swollen with fat. And you dare to think my son would marry you if Daniel were foolish enough to even consider it? I'd break his legs and cut him off right here. I glanced sideways at Daniel, relieved that at least he wasn't swayed by Chloe's theatrics. Linda's storm of scolding left Chloe frozen, her lips trembling as she muttered, No, that's not true. Grandmother said she would take care of me forever. She said the Andersons would keep me for life. The absurdity almost made me laugh. Was she really content to be fattened like livestock waiting for the day of slaughter? Truly, she was both cunning and foolish. As the ceremony neared, Daniel tugged at my hand, pulling me toward the stage. Passing Chloe, I leaned in, my voice low and cutting. People raise pigs to fatten them for slaughter, not to marry them. Remember that. Her body stiffened. In the next instant, a fruit knife glinted in her trembling hand. Daniel reacted like lightning, yanking me behind him as Chloe pressed the blade against her wrist, her smile twisted with despair. Daniel, if you go through with this engagement, I'll die right here in front of you, I swore under my breath. The woman was unhinged. Daniel's face hardened, his eyes colder than I'd ever seen. Chloe, you know I despise nothing more than being threatened. I'm not threatening you, she sobbed. I love you too much. Without you, my life has no meaning. She pressed harder, the skin of her wrist reddening but not breaking. A show, nothing more. Daniel didn't flinch. Your life is yours. If you want to throw it away, no one can stop you. Linda's face paled with fury. Chloe Bennett, we've given you 20 years of comfort, clothes, food, every privilege. And now you want to steal my son's bride as well. If you want to die, go ahead. I'll buy you the most expensive urn and the finest burial plot. The tension in the room was suffocating, yet I nearly burst into laughter at the sheer ruthlessness. Chloe clearly hadn't expected such indifference. Panic flashed in her eyes as she cried louder. Daniel, your sister is about to die and you only care about your fiancé. Are you even human? He didn't even look at her. You chose this path. Don't blame me. He turned to me, his voice softening. Come on, Harper. The ceremony's about to start. We shouldn't be late. And just like that, he pulled me away, ignoring Chloe's cries. My mother-in-law followed her steps, brisk, her face set. Not one of us looked back. I tried, but Daniel gripped my hand tighter. Don't turn around. The moment you look, she'll cling to you like a parasite. Linda squeezed my shoulder gently. Don't worry, Harper. That knife didn't even have an edge. It's all for show. She'll be back once she realizes no one's watching. I wanted to believe her, but unease gnawed at me. Sure enough, minutes later, Chloe reappeared, freshly changed, her face scrubbed, slipping into the crowd as though nothing had happened. My inexperience with her shameless persistence was showing. She had thicker skin than I ever imagined. After the engagement, I moved in with Daniel, not into the Malibu mansion, but into a modest 3-bedroom apartment in downtown Los Angeles. It was close to Stanford where I was working toward my doctorate. It suited me better than the suffocating grandeur of the Anderson estate. Daniel confessed later that Chloe had once barged into his room in her nightgown so many times that he'd been forced to flee hiding his address so she couldn't follow. "You don't know how much I've sacrificed for you," he told me with mock solemnity. I pictured Chloe's lumbering frame and naive, smug grin and couldn't help thinking his so-called sacrifice wasn't as noble as he made it out to be. From the very first night we lived together, Daniel transformed into a mischievous menace. I buried myself in my thesis drafts, but every 5 minutes his head popped into my study, asking when I was coming to bed. Sometimes he wandered past half-dressed, stretching like he was on a runway, flexing his abs, as if counting them out loud. Heat surged through me despite myself. "Lost a little definition lately," he mused one evening, running a hand down his torso. I glared at him. "Don't fish for compliments. You still have 8 packs. His grin was shameless as he strolled closer. "Sweetheart, writing your dissertation must be exhausting. Want to play a little 2-player game? It's quick, I promise." My cheeks flamed as I turned away, only for him to scoop me into his arms like a bride and dash toward the bedroom. Whatever game he had in mind was anything but quick, and it definitely drained more energy than it gave back. Daniel Anderson was a devil in disguise, a wolf wearing the skin of a loyal dog. Daniel flexed dramatically in front of me, his grin mischievous. "Haven't been training lately. My abs are fading." I rolled my eyes at him. "Fading what? You still have 8. He laughed, his smile boyish and utterly shameless, and leaned closer. "Sweetheart, writing dissertations must be exhausting. How about a little 2-player game? It won't take long." My face flamed and I instinctively sidestepped, but he didn't give me a chance to protest. In one swift move, he scooped me into his arms like a bride and dashed straight to the bedroom. My squeals echoed down the hallway, part outrage, part reluctant amusement. Whatever game he had in mind was not short, and it was definitely not easy on my stamina. Daniel Anderson was a wolf dressed as a loyal pet, a born trickster. Still life with him began to settle into a rhythm deceptively peaceful, like calm water hiding a swift current. Aside from the endless pile of my dissertation drafts and his endless creative games, everything was surprisingly harmonious. On weekends, we visited his parents. That was when trouble returned. The moment we stepped into the gated community, I spotted Chloe Bennett pushing Patricia's wheelchair along the path. After the chaos she had caused at our engagement, Linda had declared she wanted Chloe gone, banished from the house for good. But Patricia had staged a hunger strike, forcing everyone's hand, and so the girl stayed. It had escalated into a battle between matriarch and daughter-in-law that no one could fully resolve. With Patricia's stubborn support, Chloe clung on like a weed that refused to die. Linda was so furious she packed a bag and retreated to her own mother's for weeks, leaving Mr. Anderson scrambling daily to coax her back. Watching Chloe from head to toe, I couldn't help but marvel with bitter amusement. How did she cultivate skin that thick, a shamelessness that could withstand nuclear blasts? Patricia, meanwhile, cradled the little audio device I had given her, happily listening to dramatic romance audiobooks. Despite her earlier disdain, ever since Daniel and I became engaged, her open hostility had softened. When I adjusted the volume for her, her eyes softened too, a flicker of warmth that made my chest tighten with relief. But then Chloe's shadow fell across me, her eyes dark and calculating, bored into mine. "Daniel, go on ahead. I want to speak to my sister-in-law for a moment." For the first time she called me that. Sister-in-law. The words tasted foreign on her lips. Was this an olive branch? Daniel's tone was sharp. "Anything you want to say to her, you can say in front of me?" She pouted, her voice dripping with false innocence. "Why, you afraid I'll eat her alive?" I touched Daniel's arm lightly, signaling that it was fine. "Go wait by the gate. We'll be quick." He kissed my forehead before leaving reluctantly. Chloe's gaze lingered on his retreating figure for a long, silent stretch. The longing in her eyes was unmistakable, unsettling in its intensity. In that instant, the truth hit me. Chloe would never let him go. She would fight me until the very end. Her voice cut through the air, low and venomous. Harper Collins, do you feel proud of yourself? You've bewitched him so completely that he's no longer the man I knew. Chloe. I replied evenly. Love can't be forced. He didn't choose you not because he lacked eyes, but because you were never what he wanted. Patricia shifted in her chair, casting me a regretful glance. Don't be sad, child. I'll find you someone better, someone 100 times more worthy than Daniel. Chloe's expression twisted as she turned to Patricia. No, Grandma, I only want him. You'll help me, won't you? Before I could react, she leaned down smiling with a mockery of angelic sweetness, then shoved Patricia's wheelchair forward. The ground sloped downward. The chair rolled violently, wheels rattling. Patricia screamed before miraculously springing from the chair and running a few steps. She was healthier than she let on, but the momentum carried her forward, and she stumbled hard onto the pavement. I lunged to help her, but Chloe's hand tangled in my hair, yanking me back so hard my scalp burned. Harper Collins. Even if you dislike Grandma, how dare you push her like that? You're insane, cruel, and pathetic. Chloe's voice was shrill as her nails tore at my scalp. Pain seared through me, but rage burned hotter. I twisted around and jammed 2 fingers straight into her eyes. She screamed and stumbled back, clutching her face, shrieking like a wounded animal. Daniel rushed in his hands, clamping down on her shoulders, dragging her away from me. I dropped to my knees beside Patricia, my heart pounding, terrified she might be seriously injured. She sat on the stone steps, pale as paper, clutching her knee. Before I could speak, Chloe lunged forward again, desperation wild in her eyes. Grandma, say it. Say Harper pushed you. Tell everyone she tried to hurt you. Patricia's gaze cut to her sharp and cold. Then she turned to me, her voice breaking. Chloe Bennett, you wicked child. I must have been blind to ever spoil you. Her words landed like thunder. Chloe's power crumbled instantly. By nightfall, the Anderson family had thrown every last one of Chloe's belongings out onto the front lawn. Linda insisted on calling the police, but Patricia, still shaken, only demanded one thing, that Chloe leave the house forever, never to return. Chloe knelt in the driveway, wailing, her face streaked with tears and mascara. Grandma, you promised me, you said you'd give me to Daniel, that I'd never have to work or study, that this family would take care of me for life. How can you turn your back on me now? Everyone calls me useless, a burden, a mistake. Linda had had enough. She struck her across the face, once, twice, sharp and merciless. Shut that filthy mouth. If Patricia hadn't dragged you in, you'd have starved years ago. Don't you dare bite the hand that fed you. Chloe staggered, clutching her swelling cheek, her eyes blazing with hatred as she glared at me. Harper Collins, this is all your fault. You stole Daniel from me, stole my parents, and now even Grandma. I'll kill you. She lunged, her hands clawing for my hair again, but this time I didn't hold back. My foot connected with her stomach, sending her sprawling, and then, like divine timing, the doorbell rang. Police officers stepped in their presence, heavy with authority. Who called when asked? Linda raised her hand without hesitation. I did. This girl tried to kill my mother-in-law and smear my daughter-in-law. She pointed directly at Chloe, her tone laced with disgust. We've raised her for more than 20 years, fed her, clothed her, given her everything, and what does she do? She bites back like a rabid dog. She's worse than useless. If she isn't punished now, who knows what she'll try next? Chloe turned desperately to Patricia, sobbing. Grandma, please say something. You're the only one who loves me. Don't let them take me away. But Patricia said nothing. She only closed the door with a finality that sealed Chloe's fate. Dragged away, screaming, Chloe's absence lifted the atmosphere in the Anderson home like a storm breaking. Linda hummed as she cooked, her eyes softer when she looked at her husband. Daniel finally moved back in with me, and for once there was peace. Only Patricia remained quiet, weighed down by shame at what she had raised, a wolf disguised as kin. The blow had shaken her deeply. She even suggested moving into a nursing home, but Mr. Anderson wouldn't hear of it. Our wedding day arrived without further sabotage. The ceremony unfolded like a dream. Clad in a white gown, I walked slowly toward the man I loved. Daniel's eyes glistened with unshed tears, his smile tender, his gaze brimming with devotion. In that moment, I felt happiness wrap around me like a warm blanket. That night, while I pored over my dissertation, Daniel sat beside me with a book in hand. The silence of our apartment was filled only with the sound of our breathing steady and in sync. I looked up at him, struck by the calm beauty of that simple moment. For years, I had fought not to lose myself in love, not to be a vine clinging for survival. I wanted to be a tree standing tall beside him, facing storms together. That was something Chloe Bennett would never understand. Daniel set his book aside, sliding closer, his tone playful. "Sweetheart, why are you staring at me instead of working, thinking about me again?" I laughed softly. "Of course, always about you." His grin widened as he scooped me into his arms once more. "If you're so distracted, you deserve a punishment. Time to test out the newest game I found." That man, he always knew how to wear me down, leaving me breathless, laughing, and helplessly in love. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.